welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Blake, at the beginning of every show, whenever I don't know what to say, I say that I'm excited that football's close. And today I can actually say that the pads are popping. The guys are actually they're not popping, but they're all in the damn field. They're back. They're actually practicing. I know that first couple of days are usually it's slow acclimation. I got too excited. Got a little ahead of myself there, but they're finally on the field, and we have stuff to talk about. And we're so freaking close.
So for me, I say this all the time. For me, football season begins when fall camp starts, right? Like, Joe, there ain't no playing around anymore, right? And look, at most college, Big Ten, SEC, yeah, they're not in pads. It doesn't mean they're not getting after it, right? I mean, they're in spider pads, I guess, technically. But, yeah, man, around the country, people started opening up camp today. You know, I saw Arizona State quarterback Sam Leavitt minus Cam Scatterboo looking pretty sharp. I saw Ty Simpson hitting some big passes, but nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared the college football world today for Hugh Freeze and some of the comments that the Auburn head coach had to say, which we are going to discuss here.
Well, okay, I know what you're referring to. I have something else that I want to talk about.
No, we got to get to both. We got to get to both of them. We can't.
Okay, fine. You want to talk about the thing that dominated the headlines?
Yes, I want to talk about the girthy comment. Yes.
I mean, he's not wrong. If we're talking from like a scouting standpoint, girth and length is incredibly important.
In case you missed it, Auburn head coach today, Hugh Freeze, was asked about the running back position, and he was like, "Listen, in this league, to be a good running back, you have to have girth and you have to have length." And I think that everybody's imagination went exactly, and it's why it got clipped and why everybody freaked out. I mean, yes, you do have to have girth and length. But I think that, Joe, read the room. I mean, you know what that comment's going to do. Don't be like, oh, shucks. I mean, come on, you know.
Yeah, he's dicking around, man. Like, I don't know why anyone's surprised. He's always been this guy, and his tone and the way that he was talking also showed up in the quote that bothered me, where he was talking about how they're handling Jackson Arnold and how much pressure they're putting on him in practice. I'll save our thoughts when we get to that segment, but yeah, are we really surprised that he's goofing around? It's day one. He's already goofing around. Are we really shocked by that?
But see, here's the thing. I think he, number one, fully believes it. The funny, ironic thing is he's not wrong, right? Like you do have to have a nice pause, bit of size on you if you're a running back in one of these bigger conferences. Can we just say that you have to be well put together? Can we not say that?
Well, see, I'm not going to agree with you on that part. I do think, as somebody who often says similar things to him like that, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I'm just saying we shouldn't be shocked. You freaking we popped off. We went pretty viral with the Bryce Underwood clip that we posted recently. It's got 900 likes on Twitter. I had to mute it. It was giving me so many notifications on the R&J account.
You're welcome.
It has
by the way,
150K views on the TikTok account. We might be getting a special edit version of that clip because it did so well. You in the middle of the clip, the reason why I didn't take this out, because I knew if the clip did well, people were going to laugh at it. You in the middle of it, I forget what you said, but you said pause in the middle of your super serious take that you had.
I said he's got great length. I said he's got great length.
No. You said he's got a hose. Pause.
And then he's got a hose
to elaborate.
Okay, fair. But
so you can't talk. You can't talk.
Hold on now. Hold on. I knew, but see, I inserted the pause there because I understood what people would say. Oh, this guy's
no one was gonna say that. No one was gonna point that out until you said it.
But listen, here's the real thing. When you have your back up against the wall and you run out there to the press conference, it kind of confirms to me that everything Hugh Freeze says is under a microscope right now, literally. And, I remember, in a serious note, I remember after the 2019 LSU season, everything Ed, when he started losing, was under a microscope. Things that were funny in 2019 became magical problems in 2020 and 2021. It just goes to show what the smallest things about everything's under a microscope. But he did say something today that, Joe, I got to be honest with you, if you're an Auburn fan, probably should make you a little upset. And what he did state today, talking about DJ Durkin, their defensive coordinator, and basically saying to take it easy. Now, listen, every single practice is scripted. Whether we like anybody wants to admit this or not, every single offense and defensive period is scripted until you start really getting into things. I think there's a lot of context with his Hugh Freeze comment about Jackson Arnold, the quarterback, DJ Durkin, and Hugh Freeze telling Durkin, hey, the only thing and the number one priority for us in camp right now is making sure that Jackson Arnold builds confidence. Don't do anything that he hasn't seen. Just make sure that we're going base and getting stuff in here so that we can get some Jackson Arnold some confidence. But Joe, I got to be real with you. I don't know how much I like this comment, because when you get down to it, you're doing him a massive disservice. Are you, Jackson Arnold?
Right. I assume we're getting into this topic fully right now.
I mean, yeah, I
okay.
believe
I'm
so.
just double checking. So apparently this whole conversation stemmed from a conversation between Cole Kublik and Josh Pate, who Kublik said to Pate that they were, as you just mentioned, that they instructed Durkin to make life easier for Jackson Arnold. So this was kind of scuttlebutt. This was not something that was reported on until somebody asked him, Hugh Freeze, today during availability. And his quote was, I also used to be very adamant the number one priority of practice is for our quarterback to leave the field confident.
Yes.
I'm going back to that this year. I think that the premise, and I want to be very clear about this, I am not telling Hugh Freeze how to coach. I know that there's going to be people in the comments that do that. I'm like, well, why don't you coach the team? Why aren't you a coach? I can't stand when we get those. It's very annoying. I understand his premise because last year he was awful at making sure that his guys were confident. I mean, he was throwing them under the bus in post-game press conferences when they played poorly. Every single guy, he was not doing anything to uplift them. And I spoke about how much that bothered me, that there was not this emphasis of, even with bad performances, to at least try and rally them. Bart Starr, I remember I read this book where Bart Starr told Vince Lombardi that you can't scream at me in front of the team, pull me into your office and scream at me there. Try to make that interaction where you're going to share that displeasure. Don't make it public. So I understand why he doesn't want his guys' confidence to sink. But at the same time, is softening what they're seeing in practice, is that really what's going to make Jackson Arnold better?
No.
I saw Jackson Arnold last year as a guy who, not because he was lacking confidence, but a guy who, the minute that things weren't going well, crumbled. You know how you get better in adversity? You face more of it. I can't get with this. I don't like this philosophy at all.
All right. Well, there's a couple of things that we need to understand about practices and college practices. They're all scripted.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. So there are a couple of things here. Coaches sit down before every practice and say, hey, offense, what do you want to work on today? X, Y, and Z. All right. Well, if you're going to work on X, Y, and Z, defense, what would you call on this? So everybody knows exactly what's going to be run. Everybody has the play sheet of what's going to be run and what they need to run. Every practice in the SEC is scripted. Every single one of them. When they go 11 on 11, like I was at LSU's full practice today, Joe, the entire thing was scripted. Guess what? Guess what the entire defense ran today? Cover one. They ran cover one. Okay? Like every single part of this was scripted. However, why do you – number one, I'm not telling Cole Kublik what he should and shouldn't do, but if he's got that level of access, he's got to make sure that Cole, like, hey, listen, do not go out here saying this. There are things when you have sources that, Joe, that you do. And listen, you have been sitting in that exact chair when we're not on this show and I get a phone call and somebody on that other side of the line literally says, please don't repeat this, but, and then they X, Y, and Z comes out. Okay, sounds good. At least I have the understanding of what's going on. I'm not saying Cole shouldn't have brought that up, but there does come a level of time where you got to protect, and there's things that you know that others, that fans do not. I'm not going at Cole. He has the right to say whatever he wants to say. However, this is day one. It's day one. And I understand what he's saying in reference to building the confidence of Jackson Arnold. Joe, let's just be real right now. His entire career at Auburn might rest on the shoulders of Jackson Arnold or Deuce Knight for whatever it's worth. Mm-hmm. So I understand what he's trying to say. It tells me that there's a coach that's scared a little bit here. Like, why didn't you do that for Peyton Thorne then? Like, you're doing something. How did you go through 2 years of Peyton Thorne and then just magically remember that, well, you know, the biggest thing that we need to do is build the quarterback's confidence? When did 2 years go by and you're just like, hey, okay, well, maybe we can try this out? Joe, you're doing the young man a disservice, a massive disservice, because do you really think that Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, Steve Sarkisian, and I know for a fact because I'm at every one of his practices, Brian Kelly, do you really think that they take it easy on these dudes?
No,
they don't.
It doesn't make them better.
It doesn't make them better. Iron sharpens iron. I know that there's going to be people from the Auburn fan base who's like, well, he's not wrong. We need to build this kid's confidence. You know how you build confidence? Teach him and get him to a place where he's making the right plays. And then when he starts making the right plays, that confidence is going to be built. Joe, it's like this. If I tell you that you are doing a good job, but in the back of your mind, you know that I'm assisting you. Like, for example, if you're at the squat rack or you're doing bench and you're sitting there with 225, the difference of you actually hitting it and me never touching it versus me assisting you on every rep is a big deal. It's a big difference. So you're assisting him at the squat rack right now. You are helping him lift this weight. And when August the 31st comes and Baylor's in town, you're going to Baylor, Dave Aranda, by the way, God bless Dave Aranda, but some of the wildest comments that he said this past week in his media days, Jesus,
separate issue.
Joseph. But there also comes a part where I've seen that man up close and I've had conversations with him. He's going to throw the kitchen sink at you. Joe, I saw him bail 3 defensive linemen on a Garrett Nussmeier interception a season ago. I've seen it with my own eyes. So you get to a place where I get that you're in day one, but you got to throw everything at him because he might not be the guy that you need. Deuce Knight might be the guy that's better and better for this team. And you know what you're telling your team? Hey, we're going to do everything to make sure that Jackson Arnold, we're going to configure the entire practice to make sure it's okay for him. How is that making me better?
And I think there's other 2 parts about this as well. Well, one, I miss the days when you'd have Buddy Ryan going so hard it would lead to fistfights at practice that he was teaming up stuff that was so hard. We need defensive coordinators who are doing that. I hope DJ Durkin would be doing, would have that approach and say, screw you, Hugh, we're going all out. The other part with this, if you're having to kind of take your foot off the gas, how does the defense get better? How is the defense going to improve in those team periods when they're having to, and also we need to be clear here, they're not instructing the defense to go like 3/4 speed. That's not what this is. It just might be they're not running their typical pressure packages. They might not be running their typical.
They're running a fade route on zero coverage so that you can give wide receiver a chance.
They might stay in base for most of the team period in order to keep it simple. Anyone who's been in a training camp practice or has played the game of football in college understands that defense always has the advantage at the beginning of camp. They always do. It is a lot easier for the defense to play at a higher level. And usually for that first week, the defense is kicking the offense's ass. If the offense starts playing well, it usually means you've got a pretty elite offense that could end up popping off. That could end up having a really big year. Mm-hmm. So if you're already telling this defense to take a step back and you're building this false sense of confidence, I think it's a disservice for the whole roster. I do agree with you. I think that's the underlying part about all this is that Hugh now understands he has to completely change his approach, and this is almost a last-ditch effort. He has to do whatever he can to buy time. He has to make sure Jackson Arnold wants to be there at the end of the season if things get rocky so they can just finish the year on a high note so that he can buy himself more time. And the other part, too, I agree with, Deuce Knight, who I've said multiple times, might end up being better for this team and might have a DJ Lagway type of an effect if he steps in midway through the year to buy Hugh more time. Find out as soon as possible if Jackson Arnold has what it takes to be the starter for this team. Find out now. Don't wait until week 7 to figure that out.
Right.
Put him through the gauntlet.
You did it with Peyton Thorne.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe, they literally did that. I mean, listen, again, they're all going to know what the defense and offense is running. And all the practice is going to be scripted. The plays defensively that are going to be run in team periods are given to Jackson Arnold before the practice starts. He already is going to know, right? Like this isn't something that he doesn't know. He knows what's coming. Now, he might not know in order because coaches are going to mix it up based off of, I saw today, Joe Sloan yelling to Blake Baker, the OC to the DC, 13, 13, 13. Okay, then he goes down his play sheet. They called number 13. They don't have it in order so that nobody knows exactly what's coming. Okay, but you're not doing him a great service in the sense of he's going to know what's coming, but at the same time, you got to put him in a position where even in day one that he faces some level of adversity because, Joe, this is it. This is it for him. I think that look, the girth comment, and listen to me, the girth comment is going to overshadow this exact conversation that you and I are having. It already is. Like, go look at the views on the girth comment versus him talking about Jackson Arnold. It's overshadowing it. By the way, the Barstool one's got 750,000 views right now. 750,000 views. No one's talking about the Jackson Arnold comment. So in a way, he's kind of I'm not saying getting away with it, but I would love to know more in depth the philosophy on this. Why aren't you trying to get your corners and DBs and safeties confidence? Why are you trying to put them in the best position to make plays? I do not understand this. I think that Hugh being an offensive guy, he wants his offense to look good, but that didn't stop Peyton Thorne. It didn't stop him. His confidence had nothing to do with him throwing in triple coverage. It had nothing to do with the amount of interceptions in your entire career that your quarterbacks have thrown in the SEC. Joe, no team has more interceptions thrown than a Hugh Freeze team in his time in the SEC. It does not exist. He leads, as a head coach, he leads the SEC in his tenure in turnovers. And Joe, we talked about this last year. They were a top 30 offense by yards. They kept turning the ball over. So you know that there's something there. Pressure makes diamonds. And Joe, you're doing this kid a disservice. I'm sorry. It beats the world out of me that you would do this and you would say this publicly.
I think that ultimately too, blind confidence on the football field as a quarterback is just going to lead to more turnovers.
100%.
How is a guy supposed to get ready and prepared to go up against the likes of the SEC and all these premier secondaries that he's going to see on the schedule? And you have a chance to go up against some really good football. This Auburn defense is going to be really underrated. We did our preview on them. They have a shot to be one of the better defenses in the SEC. Keldrick Falk bearing down on you because they run a stunt and the offensive line doesn't pick them up, and you maintain your poise and you complete a pass with a window closing down, that's how you build confidence. The confidence doesn't get built by getting it taken easy on you. I want to just kind of restate this, Blake, though. It seemed like Freeze wasn't fully committing to what the scuttlebutt and the rumor was that he told Durkin to go easy on him. But I think the way that he addressed it, and if there is an early slow period where it's a couple of slow games for Auburn and they don't hit the ground running offensively, I'm going to come right back to this. I absolutely will come right back to this.
No, but
if
he
it's the other way around, I'll admit I'm wrong.
But no, he admitted it because he could have said that we're not doing that. We're trying to get Jackson.
Well, he said, better. He's someone. I don't know what the question that was asked to him, but he literally answered yes. That was right. From the article. So
Kubik's not lying. He's trying to double down on what's actually happening. He's doubling down. Like, I mean, I don't know how else we want to put that. He's doubling down. No, Joe, but BS. He's doubling down on all this. And listen, I don't mean this in a wrong way, but when you guys, meaning like you and Ryan, and y'all get into the draft analysis and you're like, man, this guy doesn't play with a lot of timing. Joe, the reason he's not playing with timing is for a lot of reasons. If I feel like if I'm Jackson Arnold and I got more time than realistically I really do, my timing is going to be off. Your timing will be off. You can't pity pat. You cannot be in a situation in fall camp where you're just taking this shit lightly. Mm-hmm. Now, let's see what happens, and we'll go from there. But here's the bigger thing coming out of that. Armani Daniels is not – or Ashton Daniels is not the second-team quarterback right now. It's Deuce Knight.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. That's very interesting.
He is the second-team quarterback right now. So, again, you going to do that for Deuce Knight? Hey, you know what builds confidence? Like you mentioned earlier, Joe, it's like when I lost 100 pounds or you lost a lot of weight or whatever you do. When you went through that adversity, it made you feel better about yourself having to overcome something. Giving something handed out to you on a silver platter when we saw the season that Jackson Arnold had a season ago is not going to benefit him. I'm sorry, it's not.
No.
All right.
Well, we have a super chat before we get
I was going to get to it. Speaking of Georgia Tech, but we are going to do a Georgia Tech deep dive. But Joe, Cody McGee sends in a $10 super chat, says Georgia Tech is going to be a wild card team this year. I seen them losing 2 games, Clemson and Georgia, and possibly securing a playoff spot. Thoughts? But Joe, we do, and if I'm not mistaken, this is our last night of deep dives, correct?
Yes, I've decided we've reached the point. I like the new way that we did this, where we did the big schools first. We've reached the point where the teams that people are less excited about, we've gotten to them. No more. We're doing the conference previews, and we're moving forward on Sunday. So we're doing the SEC first.
We are, but tonight we go to the ACC. And, Cody, we're going to get to your conversation in your super chat. Thank you so much deeply for the super chat that you sent us. But he does ask if they can be a playoff team here. But we go to the great state of Georgia. We go to Atlanta as we do a deep dive on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Brent Key being the head coach, Haynes King returning at quarterback. Justice Haynes is going to be the running back there. Joe, when you look at this 2025 Georgia Tech team, how do you see them?
So first, I have to restate, Georgia Tech fans know that I was adamant that they would not find success early. So I have to let everybody know, again, I was wrong. I was very wrong about that. And I think that the one thing we've seen with Brent Key is that he's done such a tremendous job building in the trenches on both sides of the football. Where I'm the most excited, though, Blake, and even though they lost some bodies, some big names, Romello Height, Eric Singleton, they're going to have to replace those guys. They have some seriously impactful players at quarterback and at running back. I think that Haynes King deserves to be considered as one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC, maybe could be in that discussion as a top 15 quarterback in the country, maybe even higher than that. I haven't put together my rankings yet, but just off the top of my head. I have said this, though. I really, really like Jamal Haynes. I think that Jamal Haynes needs to be recognized as one of the 3 best running backs in all of college football. I would put him in that same discussion with Nick Singleton and Jeremiah Love. I would not say that he's on par with those guys, but he is not far off. He was banged up in spurts last year, Blake. And I think that there's a really good chance this upcoming season where he is, if he's healthy the full year, and they run the ball the way that they did and get him in space the way that they did, that Georgia Tech can be knocking on the door of a playoff and be a 9-10 win team because their offense is going to be so fast and it's going to be so explosive.
Justice Haynes is one of
Jamal Haynes.
Why do I keep calling him Justice?
I make that mistake too. It's a reasonable mistake.
Jamal Haynes, the running back who last year had around 1,000 yards rushing, had 9 touchdowns a season ago. A lot of people, Joe, in these games, whether it was Florida State in the beginning of the season or Georgia at the end of the season, and even if it is Miami, Joe, this Georgia Tech team played with a lot of culture and intensity a season ago. They were on 3 big stages where they won 2 of those games. Week 0 last year, and then Georgia really at the end of the year where they lost that one, but they also upset the University of Miami. Joe, they could have one of the better running attacks and rushing attacks in the ACC. I'm going as bullish to say that maybe Louisville with Brown can be the one that maybe is at number 1. But, Joe, what happens if we get a healthy Haynes King? That's the ultimate question here. Now, if you remember the breakdown of Georgia Tech a season ago, the number 1 conversation that you and I had was about his turnovers, meaning Haynes King. Can he get down from those double-digit turnovers? Second year as a full-time starter at Georgia Tech, he did have some injuries, but, Joe, I don't care about that. He still had well over 250 passing attempts. He had 2 picks. He had 2 fumbles. And he ran the ball 125 times a season ago. The big thing is outside of the injuries, what it taught me is, here's a kid that's figuring it out. But, Joe, he's such a good athlete. I think even in that, now being in a 3rd year in this system, Joe, how much better can he be as a passer? He completed 72.9% of his passes a season ago. I'm not saying he's a polished passer, he's an NFL-level passer, anything like that. Joe, he went from 65% to 73%. I mean, it's a massive leap. The turnovers came down. Now, he doesn't have the best wide receiver on his team that he had a year ago. And the question's going to be with Rutherford coming back and some of the guys that they added in the portal from wide receiver, whether it be Rivers, Patterson, or Smith, can one of those guys fill the void that you had there? The question becomes, if Haynes King is healthy with this rushing attack, Joe, I don't know if Cody in the Super Chat's not wrong. If they can't make a push here and be one of those contenders in the ACC at the end of the year, if you can run the football effectively and you can do some of the things that they showed a season ago, Joe, I don't know if this isn't a sleeper in the ACC, especially when you look at them offensively.
I think that what gives me the most optimism and excitement about this is, one, last year they had they had one of the hardest schedules in terms of strength of schedule. They were like number 2 or number 3 at the beginning of the season, and they had a gauntlet. And through that gauntlet, they still finished over 500. And through that period of time, Jamal Haynes went down with injuries. Haynes King went down with injuries. They were putting in multiple quarterbacks down to their 3rd guy, and they still found success. They still were able to beat Miami. I think if health is on their side with a far easier schedule, without having to see SMU this year, without having to face Louisville this year, I also don't think, they don't play Miami either this season. Having such a favorable schedule sets up for them to have that degree of success that we're talking about. I think what ultimately gets me the most juiced up about this is that they are going to continue to establish the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. That is what Key has done. And I think most teams in the ACC don't have the bodies to do that successfully. They're going to be able to steal a game that they're not supposed to, or be able to slow down a game as much as possible because they're just out physicaling people. That is where their success comes from. It is not the same type of ACC that we've seen in the past. There is an overall lack of physicality, and I think that Georgia Tech is we're bringing that physicality.
Yeah, I like your part there. They're going to bring the physicality. Now, the question becomes with them from a physicality standpoint. Okay, you go out in the portal, you got some offensive line changes. I think Brent Key was an offensive lineman himself. Joe, that's where I like them the most. They just look, they're not going to out-athlete a lot of people, okay, up front.
Not up front. Yeah.
But, Joe, they're just so tough. I got to be real with you. They were one of the funner teams to watch last year because they're just going to line it up and go 4 yards in a cloud of dust, and they're going to tell you to stop them. We don't care. We're going to punch you in the mouth all day. We're going to throw body shots at you all day, and you got to stop it. Question becomes, though, I do think from a physicality standpoint, I don't know how much it translated over to the defensive side of the football. Now, I know that you're in a situation with effort returning, Harvey returns. You got some key pieces that led you in tackles a season ago. Joe, how can they build off the success that they had against Miami at the end of the year? Can they build off of some of the success that they had and what they did against Carson Beck? If they can and become more complete, I got to be real with you. I think you have a contender in the ACC. But offensively, with a healthy Haynes King, I think they even, with Singleton gone, take a step forward. But when I look at them defensively, there were times where they got pushed around, and that cannot happen. So as much as we admire this Georgia Tech team and the effort and the toughness that they play with, this, I hate to say it like this, it is about Jimmy's and Joe's. And you got to find a way to utilize that toughness defensively, and what they did. A lot of times last year they did a couple of big third-down stops against Miami, et cetera. But how do they figure that out? Can they be more complete? And then they're cooking with grease here.
The last bit for me is I think that the Georgia game really tells us everything that we need to know about this team is that how are they going to show up in the biggest moments? And they did that, showed up against Miami. They showed up against Florida State. They showed up and took Georgia to, 7-8 overtimes, the ridiculous game that we all watched on that Friday night, best game of the season. I think we could classify that as. The way that they stayed so resilient makes me, though, that they might not have the biggest names outside of Haynes King and Jamal Haynes. And I would maybe throw Kyle Efford in. There's a pretty quality, recognizable player, mostly because he's just got such a big neck and he's got that big cowboy collar on that he wears, and that picture circulates every time he makes a play. But they might not have like the big name, springy athlete at every other position. They're going to always outwill everybody, and that's where I give Brent Key credit why he's transformed this program. But a lot of it does come down to the schedule. I think that the schedule kind of keeps a lot of intrigue there.
Let's talk about that in just after this comment. Okay. Haynes King in that Georgia game. Joe had 5 total touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Georgia was a lot of things last year. Bad defensively is not one of them. They weren't. I mean, we can make about so many things about Georgia a season ago. I'm not going to get in a conversation. You don't know ball if you're talking about Georgia defensively being bad a season ago by any standard on any imagination. I will go into battle every single day with Haynes King. Every day. If that's the level of effort I'm constantly going to get, knock on wood, I hope the kid stays healthy. Joe, I'm rolling in there with him. And look, they're going to be tough. If you're a defense, you better buckle up and be ready to pack a lunch against Georgia Tech because they're going to come right at you, and you got to love it. But looking at the schedule, your thoughts and reading it off.
Yes. So they start on the road at Colorado. Fun little tidbit. Credit to Phil Steele, who put this in his preseason guide. Last time they traveled west of the Mississippi, they lost to BYU by 18 points in 2013. They then come back home. They host Gardner-Webb. They host Clemson. They take on Temple. They go to Wake Forest versus Virginia Tech, at Duke versus Syracuse, at NC State, at Boston College versus Pitt, versus Georgia, and I believe the Georgia game is a neutral site game. The way that I see this,
Yeah,
Blake,
it's a Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah. Yep. The way that I see this, Blake, I don't think that they can beat Clemson, sadly. Sorry, Georgia Tech fans. I'm going to just declare that one a loss for you guys. And the Georgia game is going to be tough, but I think likely Georgia will win that football game because of the super high hopes that we have for them. If they can come out of the road game against Colorado, which is going to be real tough, real tough. Even if they drop that, there is still 9 wins on this schedule. The only other game that I would really circle that I would think could surprise them is
Can
the Duke
I
game.
tell you what it is?
Were you going to say Syracuse or Duke?
I was going to say Syracuse.
Either of them. Either of those two work, but they have an edge.
Here's the thing with me, okay? I'm with you on Georgia and Clemson. Before we start coming in here and saying, hey, Georgia Tech's knocking them off, we're not that level of podcast, okay? Go out there and prove that you're going to do that before we start saying, and you prove to us that you're a playoff contender, okay? That's number one. Number two, Joe, I do look at the schedule and look at some of the offenses and quarterbacks that you got to play against. You got Mintz on the schedule, and you're on the road in Durham, North Carolina. You're at home against Syracuse, and look, based off of what Syracuse got out of Kyle McCord last year, how do I know what Angeli's going to do? I mean, there are some really talented quarterbacks on this schedule. But, Joe, if it's a 50-50 toss-up, I can see 9 wins. I can. If the extreme part is them getting the 10-win moniker, they're going to have to run the table and everybody not named Georgia and Clemson. So they're going to have to beat a Big 12 team in week 1. And then you got to run the table, Joe. I mean, you get to Clemson early, but you got to run the table. You can't have a loss from September the 20th until November the 28th. So, Joe, 3 months in a week, you cannot lose. You got to continue to trend. But, Joe, I look at Pitt too. I mean, I don't think that Eli Holstein's a bad quarterback. And when you face off against good quarterbacks, I mean, hell, we saw last year Kyle McCord, who I think wasn't he the number 1 passer in all of the country from a yard standpoint. I mean, he was
up there.
He went into Pitt and threw 5 picks. I mean, anything can happen. The one thing that does scare me about them is if they get into some shootouts and a team starts stopping the run and going everything out, can Haynes King find some receivers, not named Singleton, who's no longer there? Can he find some guys that can get open in space and you throw the football when it's needed? They are a very intriguing team. When you look at them, do you think they're going 9-3?
I think considering how well they finished last year and how close they were in a bunch of games that I don't think anyone thought that they should have been, this schedule's so much easier. And they didn't get completely gutted. They did lose a few guys. They have a 42nd ranked strength of schedule this year. I don't want to say definitively 9 wins on the table. It's happening, but 9 is accomplishable. I think they're one of those teams that their floor is going to be super high. I think that they're a lot more stable than most of the other teams in the ACC on their schedule. Like Virginia Tech and NC State and Pitt, they could be on really shaky ground by the time that they play them. Wake, you've got a completely new head coach when you're going to be facing them. The real challenges come from how does Syracuse look? Do they catch lightning in a bottle? And does Darian Mensah play to his potential? Their defense has some big-time bodies on it. Like Wesley Williams is a guy that I really, really like that they have on their defensive line. Those are where the traps lie. 8-4 is totally doable, and 9-3 is kind of where I set the ceiling because that traveling to Colorado is tough, man. Like that, you can't prepare yourself for the level of elevation and what it takes to play against Colorado, which we talked about the other day when we did the Colorado preview.
Do you have any remote idea what Colorado's going to do offensively?
No.
Because what they did with Shedeur does not meet Caden Salter's skill set. I mean, he can throw it around. But, Joe, you're talking about a dude before Liberty was absolutely gutted who had 1,000 yards rushing. I mean, he went up against Oregon and did not look bad at all. At all. Hey, we say whatever we want. but he didn't look bad at all. Definitely looked better than Shedeur did. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, but he did. So, Joe, I got to be real with you. I don't know who I pick in that game either. I would lean 8-4-ish and maybe ceiling 9-3 on the outside looking in. But is 9-3 good enough? Because, Joe, you would have one loss in the ACC. If they run the table, but they lose to Colorado and Georgia, but lose to Clemson, okay? And they got one loss in the ACC, and they're finding themselves in the square part of this in ACC championship game. So the part of this is, even if they go 8-4 to an extent, hear me out, and their losses are to Colorado and to Georgia, okay? We saw a 2-loss team in the ACC championship game 2 years ago. It's not far-fetched at all. At all. By the way, we saw a team lose to a Big 12 team at the beginning of the season, SMU, and they were in the ACC championship game. I know it sounds like a crazy hypothetical, but Joe, it's the truth. It's a bona fide truth that, look, 9-3 for them in this conference based off of what their schedule is. Could you get a 9-3 team in the ACC championship game in a rematch versus Clemson? You do not have Louisville on that schedule. You do have Clemson, but you don't have Florida State. You don't have Miami. You don't have some of the bigger teams outside of Miami on that schedule. By the way, the ACC's got West Coast teams. Do you see one?
Oh, yeah. They don't have any trips.
They don't have any trips. They don't go to Stanford. They don't go to Cal. Those are the things when you're looking at them. And to Cody's super chat, Joe, this schedule's it's brutal. At the same time, in the league, I
wouldn't say what's brutal though. This is
well, when you go up against Georgia and Clemson, and we think that those two teams could win their conferences, yeah, it's pretty brutal.
It's easy for the framing that they're not facing a gauntlet of ACC teams. They have the middle to the back end of the conference, which supports your point that you're bringing up here. They could kind of Indiana this thing.
They could
into a really good conference record, and then I don't think that they're going to win the ACC championship, but they could get to the ACC championship game.
Hot take. Actually, not hot take. I got to throw this out there to you. Don't get mad at me. This is the only statement I'm going to make about this. Remember when Tony Petitti says that conference record was the only thing that mattered? And AQ models should be where you go?
Can we do a preview without this getting brought up?
Hold on. We just found a team that it doesn't match for. They could have one loss in their conference and be 9-3, and we're having a conversation about them being an automatic qualifier. See the light?
You're not wrong, but I don't.
Yeah, I know I'm not wrong.
Can we just? Let us live, man. Let us live. You're right, but for one day, no more bracket. No, all right. I'm setting a rule. No more bracket format talk until there's an actual news update for it. I'm setting a rule.
That's because I got to find ways to get you going.
Nope.
Big Stick with a $5 super chat says, like Blake's hairline, I'm back. Brother, look at your receding hairline. You don't have a forehead. You have a 5-head.
I don't think that's a picture of him.
I don't care what it is, but if that is him, I mean, you got a bigger forehead than Peyton Manning. I don't know what you're talking about, but glad to have you back. Oh, by the way, he says go Irish because, of course, Notre Dame people hate my guts. Why do y'all hate me so much?
I'm shocked. I don't. Well, you've been awfully nice. I told you a certain I'm not going to say who, a player's dad shared with me a nice message for you after I spoke to him. That's a part of the Notre Dame team, which I thought was very funny. I said to him after he was joking with me and saying that you don't give Notre Dame enough credit. You have given Notre Dame a lot of credit this offseason. You have turned around. I'm proud of you.
You better not lose a lot this season because my vengeance will come back. All that shit y'all were talking.
Uh-huh.
By the way, did you see Bill Connelly's national title thing about teams that go and the regression, like for Ohio State, Notre Dame, et cetera? Did you see that?
No. Mm-mm.
Dude, it is insane. It is absolutely like there was like a 95% chance that 2 more losses for both of those teams come. I don't see that for Ohio State. I can't see that.
But the problem is though is that Notre Dame didn't, of the 2 teams, Notre Dame didn't lose anything.
They lost a starting quarterback.
They lost their starting quarterback, and they lost a couple of defensive linemen in the draft. They were super young last year, so I just don't think that fall from grace happens for ND.
Just lost a quarterback, and you have a first-time starter. I think is a big deal.
I think worst case, knowing how much, they're 9-3. They're
right. That's their worst case. I agree with that.
Well, I mean, quite literally, look at what Freeman's done. Is that they're going to lose their MAC game, but they'll run the table on the rest of their schedule. And
can you, the funny saying of, if I would have told you last year, Joe, you're going to lose to Northern Illinois, but you're going to play in the national championship game, would you have done it? Yeah, you would have done it.
I would have said yes, but if you asked me that of like, would you believe me? I would say no. I would say if you lost to Northern Illinois, I would have guessed you would have been 8-4, 9-3.
Just throwing this out there. I remember media people who are fluffing Marcus Freeman up now, going on their other podcasts, calling for him to be fired.
I called for him to be fired. I will repeat that. I will reiterate the fact that I was wrong about that.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Wanted to fire the man. All right. Joe, before we get out of here, our last deep dive of the season, we go to the Big 12, a team that went 5-7 a year ago. Joe, a team that we thought that could win the Big 12 in year one. Didn't go the way that anybody expected. But the Utah Utes are on the docket here. Joe, when you look into the 2025 season into Utah, your thoughts on how things may shake out going into the season?
I am getting sucked all the way back in.
Don't
say pause. I fell for this trap last year, and I'm going to do it again. 2 reasons. Utah quietly has the best offensive line in the country. At the very least, they have a top 3 offensive line in the country. They're the only team that I know of from evaluating. I've broken down film for my job with A to Z Sports for the upcoming draft. We do our summer scouting. Only team that I had first-round grades for 2 offensive linemen, Caleb Lomu, Spencer Fano. Both incredibly gifted, will be top 50 picks at the bare minimum if they declare for the upcoming draft. Super gifted. The other reason why I have a lot of optimism, which if you've got guys that good in the Big 12, you are going to be able to run the ball. You're going to have success. Their problems last year happened because Cam Rising was a old man that was falling apart.
He was a shell of himself.
Yeah, he could not stay healthy, and it felt like there was no contingency plan. It felt like all their eggs were in that basket of like, okay, Cam Rising's back. We're going to hit the ground running. We're going to run the ball. We're going to be able to attack downfield. And the minute the wheels fell off on that offense, they just went to quarterback after quarterback that didn't work. They did. Nobody's really talked about this. They did what Oklahoma did. They went and got a new offensive coordinator from New Mexico, and they brought the quarterback with them, with Devin Dampier, who rushed for 1,000 yards at New Mexico last year. He is not John Mateer. Is he really athletic and really hard to tackle and a playmaker, point guard style playmaker? Absolutely. I think that if their success comes this season, Blake, even though that they did have some roster turnover, especially in the defensive tackle position, which I don't love, there is a lot to get excited about for those 2 big things. Key players at the 2 most important positions on any roster.
What has Utah been known for in the last decade?
What are you going for?
No, I mean like philosophy for coaching. What has been defense and running the football effectively? You went out and got Dampier, who had, as you mentioned, over 1,000 yards, actually over 1,100 yards, and 20 touchdowns, actually 19. you get to a place where, Joe, I do think he might be a good enough athlete in the Big 12 to continue. I don't know if he goes for 20 touchdowns rushing. Okay. Let's get that understood. However, I'm not saying they're taking a shot in the dark here, but they did the Walmart version to the Coca-Cola version of what Oklahoma did. I like Dampier. He had 12 picks a season ago. The Big 12 is a better conference than the conference that you were in a season ago. Now, he ran the football all over the place. He's a good athlete. But, Joe, their philosophy is going to be to run the football and for them to play really good defense. With that good offensive line that you talked about, I'm not going to go as far as to say that they have the best offensive line in the country. I can't go there yet. But if they do, to your point, which you've already scouted these guys deeply, let's just say that they do, and you can control the line of scrimmage in a league that necessarily doesn't have the same level of talent of other conferences up front, Joe, they're going to dominate. They're going to dominate here. But the biggest thing for Utah and the biggest problem that Utah has had the last 2 seasons has been quarterback play. I mean, it 1,000% has. I think they've been good in some places. Now, the question for me and why I would tell you to pump the brakes a little bit, how quickly can 7 transfer wide receivers and a quarterback get on the same page?
Yeah.
They have 7 transfer wide receivers. They went out this year and got Tobias Merriweather,
former Notre Dame guy.
Former Notre Dame and Cal guy, Larry Simmons from USM, and Ryan Davis. Joe, that's the 3 top that they went and got. They got 4 other ones. Maybe they hit some diamonds in the rough here. Maybe they find some guys that can really play. Maybe the connection works. But I have a quarterback with 12 interceptions a season ago and was turnover prone with receivers that he does not know. And I won't say this until I'm blue in the face. And we're going to look at their schedule in just a minute. When you get in critical situations, you have got to effectively throw the football. It is the bottom line. On 3rd down, when you need the big throw and the quarterback's got to step up, can he do it? I don't know. I just don't know. Defensively, for me, Joe, I think they're always just going to be good. Right? I don't think they were bad a year ago. I went through all their statistics a year ago, and, Joe, I threw it out. I got halfway through, and I threw it out. I'm like, bro, you got Isaac Wilson with a 3-4 turnover game. What are we doing here? Right? Like, I'm supposed to judge how good this defense was a season ago based off of what? Now you got Barton returning defensively, Snowden returning defensively. Joe, we'll see. They got to figure it out at quarterback. And if they have done that, then maybe you're cooking with grease here and they're back on top.
Right. If Dampier could play up to that expectation, I think that's where they get back into stride. And it's going to be a completely different style of quarterback from what we saw with Cam Rising and how the offense operated around him. The receiver stuff and also at running back, they're resetting pretty hard at both spots.
They got 3 new running backs as well from the portal.
Hard reset at defensive tackle. I don't think you need to completely resolve all those position groups to be fine. Defensive tackle is the one where I think I have the most worry. If there's 2 position groups that are the easiest just to throw bodies in, I had this conversation with Ryan Roberts, my co-host for the A to Z Film Room show. We were talking about this, and it's like if there's positions that are the easiest just to throw guys in, it's running back and it's receiver. But chemistry does need to be built up. Hopefully they were able to do that during the spring. Hopefully at least one of these guys can be a premier, just quality target. We don't need a 1,000-yard receiver. We just need a couple of guys to go for 500 or so because I think they're going to try and run the football super effectively. I'm a big Lander Barton fan just from the college football perspective that he is gigantic at linebacker.
Massive.
6'5". He's huge. He's going to rack up a ton of tackles. That's another type of player that you don't typically see in the Big 12. A guy that big, that physical, that explosive at his size. There is just so many outliers, I think, athletically that they have to tap into. But those resets of those position groups, those are the things that's going to hold them back if anything does.
Joe, where they're going to get pressure from defensively? I'm legitimately asking you because I don't know. I mean,
I
their sack production was not at a high enough level for you last year. I know you were on the field a lot. I know that Isaac Wilson and company did not give you a lot of favors. Joe, you got some pretty damn good quarterbacks in the Big 12 that can run, by the way. Joe, as much as I would want to buy in, I'm telling you as a friend, you got to pump the brakes on them. I think that they're going to be better than 5-7. I do. I understand what you're talking about and that you're high with them on the offensive line. But my brother in Christ, there are some flaws on this team when you're bringing in that many transfers offensively. Connection doesn't work that way. It doesn't.
Okay. So, but here's my thing, though. I keep seeing people predicting that Baylor's going to win the conference. I would rather take Utah over Baylor.
Joe,
so I like Sawyer Robertson. Sawyer Robertson was a good player when I broke his tape down, but like, there's a lot. It's just Sawyer Robertson. I feel like at Baylor.
No, they got some speedy receivers. They got some speed. They got speed.
Utah has just as much to get excited about.
You give Sawyer Robertson all the time in the world. It don't matter what happens. He's going to pick you apart like he did LSU, and that's exactly what LSU did to him in the bowl game. Couldn't get to him, and he picked him apart one by one.
They do not have anywhere near the quality of offensive line that Utah does. They don't have anywhere near the quality of linebackers that Utah does.
A lot of those offensive linemen were there last year, and they struggled to run the football in certain situations. When Isaac couldn't get anything going and everybody knew that they were running the football, I mean, does Dampier come in here and reduce his turnovers in a better conference?
It's going to be – I think it's going to be completely different, though, because you literally just said it. They knew that they had to go to Micah Bernard in so many situations because they knew that they couldn't throw the football. I remember watching those games. We were stacking the box. It's a lot easier to be diverse when you've got a mobile quarterback like Dampier. I think this is going to be a lot more dynamic the way that they're going to move the rock.
Look, I saw a kid in the Pac-12 come to the SEC and reduce his turnovers drastically. Jaden Daniels. I've seen it. Can Dampier, though, going from New Mexico to the Big 12, I'm not saying it's a massive leap, but Joe, if he's going to throw 12 picks in a lower conference, what happens in the Big 12? I'm honestly asking. Like, there's a lot that goes into this now.
I'm not dismissing that there's not a lot.
You think they can win the conference?
Yeah, I think they can.
You know what? Let's go to their schedule. Let's talk about it.
At UCLA versus Cal Poly, at Wyoming, which I don't know why you would go to Wyoming on the road willingly, versus Texas Tech, at West Virginia, versus Arizona State, at BYU, versus Colorado, versus Cincinnati, at Baylor, versus Kansas State, at Kansas. The games I think that they will not win. Arizona State, Texas Tech, but they get both those teams at home, so there's a chance that they can knock them off. Getting Colorado at home is extremely advantageous. I think that they can win that game. And they get Kansas State at home. All of their tough games, except for, I guess, BYU, which we don't know what the heck they're going for a quarterback. They get a lot of home games. And we talk a lot on here whenever there's a big Utah game and it's at home. It's one of the hardest places to go and win on the road.
It is. You think they're going to just, I mean, you glanced over the UCLA game.
You're out
on Nico.
Nico's going to be a blender. He's going to be in a blender. You think that, seriously, you think one offseason is enough for him to figure it out? Pick up the playbook and just be ready to go? He struggled in one of the simplest offenses to pick up in college football last year.
He had a wide receiver core that also led the country in drops too.
He's got a tin can and a traffic cone to throw to at UCLA. That team sucks. That UCLA team sucks.
Oh, God. It's so great. I agree with you to some extent. There are a couple of things on here I do want to point out that I don't think Colorado's a give. Like, I think that Colorado can go in there and win, depending on when that game is. Joe, they're going to Waco Okay, I still think Baylor can beat them at home. Joe, what is Kansas State and Kansas? I mean, what are they? I mean, there are a lot of 50-50 type games in here for me, outside of games like Arizona State and Texas Tech, who we think are going to be in the Big 12 title game. There's too many 50-50s for me for you to get all of them. Joe, I got to go 8-4. I got to go 8-4.
I think that they can go 10-2. I really do. They have such an advantage getting all those home games. I think that this is going to be one last shot for Kyle Whittingham to end out on a good note.
I will agree with you on this. If the concerns that I have about them offensively are not as big of issues as I am making them, I can't agree with you that they can go 10-2 and be in the Big 12 title game. Begs the question, do we have a really interesting conversation about the Big 12 at the end of this?
Well, when we do that Big 12 preview, which is going to be coming up real soon.
Are you picking Utah to win the conference?
I think I'm actually going to do Texas Tech, if I'm being completely honest.
Don't do it. Don't do that to yourself. Don't go Utah.
I think it's going to be Texas Tech, Arizona State, then Utah.
Remember Pigpen and what all we went through with Utah, the quarterback, the walk-on, Thigpen?
The pig farmer, whatever the hell his name was.
Yeah. Pigpen.
That wasn't his name.
My man's draws is never mind. Pause. I'm not going Hugh Freeze.
Okay.
See y'all on Sunday. By the way, Joe and I are doing our conference rankings come Sunday.
Yes.
So I think we start SEC.
SEC.
See you on Sunday. Peace.